What is going on, guys? Welcome in. This is Talking Tide. Welcome into the Monday review show. We have a ton to talk about. It, Sunday was a marquee day in the world of college football. For some, it was good. For some, it was really bad. For others, it was just fun to sit back and watch. I woke up this morning, this day being Sunday. This show is being recorded on a Sunday, so if I miss something that happens on Monday morning, please forgive me. I woke up to news over news over news. I was still mentally hungover from the Bama game that I had just watched beat Auburn, which we're obviously going to talk about. But I figured we'd start off tonight talking about the pure insanity that happened in the coaching carousel today. Number one, we'll get straight into it, man. Lane Kiffin has really polarized himself. And when I say polarized, when you talk about a polarizing figure, you think of people either really love him or they really hate him. Well, right now, if you're from Ole Miss, you really hate him. If you're from LSU, you probably are starting to fall in love with him. If you're not either of those, you still kind of lean on the hate side. As someone who has benefited from Lane Kiffin's coaching and his being an offensive coordinator at Alabama, I find it really hard to side with Kiffin on 95% of the things that he did during this coaching decision. So I'll say the 5% that I agree with. I think he's in the right to leave Ole Miss. Is it the right decision? Is it the wrong decision? That's for other people to decide. Maybe we'll decide it in 5 years if he's still there and won a national championship. Or maybe we'll decide it in 2 years if he gets fired for running a couple of bad teams. But that is a reasonable enough decision. Everybody knows that LSU is a marquee job. And I don't take any grief with him leaving Ole Miss for LSU. What I do take grief with is how he has done it. I don't think anybody can agree, even LSU fans. Maybe they could, but I don't believe LSU fans could even agree with how he has decided to make this decision. It felt like a mix of a toxic breakup on top of a commit, like a high school committing to a college team that goes very toxic. It's not a good look. Announcing the day that you're going to make your decision. It's the day after you beat your rivals. You could lead your team into the college football playoffs. You had a potential at an SEC championship berth. And you make it all about you in the way of even the announcement, the presser that he said. I just don't think that any of it is a good look for Lane Kiffin. I'll pull up his statement, but none of it came out in the positive for Kiffin. Yes, he got a better job, I think. Yes, he made a lot of money in the same process, but it was not a good look. It was not a good look at all. I've had multiple people who genuinely like Lane Kiffin. Whenever we were talking about potentially hiring Lane Kiffin after Nick Saban left, I had people telling me that wanted him at the program at Alabama, now saying, well, I'm glad he didn't come. And I'm the same way at this point in time. So this is what Lane Kiffin said, his official statement on leaving Ole Miss. After a lot of prayer and time spent with family, I made the difficult decision to accept the head coaching position at LSU. I was hoping to complete a historic 6-season run with this year's team by leading Ole Miss through the playoffs, capitalizing on the team's incredible success and their commitment to finish strong, and investing everything into a playoff run with guardrails in place to protect the program in any areas of concern. My request to do so was denied by Keith Carter, despite the team also asking him to allow me to keep coaching them so they could better maintain the high level of performance. Unfortunately, that means this Friday's Egg Bowl was my last game coaching the Rebels. While I am looking forward to a new start with a unique opportunity at LSU, I will forever cherish the incredible 6 years I spent at Ole Miss. We'll be rooting hard for the team to complete their mission and bring a championship to Oxford. Signed, Lane Kiffin. So, a couple of things here. First things first, I do not agree with the decision to make him I don't agree with the decision to keep him from coaching out his tenure. And what I mean by that is he got this team to a playoff, and I think he should have been allowed to coach them. I don't agree with the decision. I don't agree with the AD's decision to not let him do so. I think that's a little bit ridiculous. But I think what's made even worse, and I think that we see a little bit more behind the scenes on Lane Kiffin with how he has dealt with it from then on. So when I read that and when I hear that he's not allowed to do so, not allowed to coach this team into the playoffs, I initially think, why is this decision made? But then I look at the actions that have been made in the past 24 hours and say, oh, you know what? There's probably more going on there that meets the eye. And maybe the AD has a good reason to leave him out of this. So while I think it's a weird decision and a bit of an unfair decision, the feeling around Oxford now is Lane Kiffin is the most toxic thing to happen to this program. He's the most toxic coach, I would say, in the last couple of years. And we fired Brian Kelly this year. Not we, being LSU, but we saw Brian Kelly get fired this year, and that was a saga. This is even more so. This is, you will remember the day where you were when Lane Kiffin got hired at LSU. For better or for worse, you will remember the day. And you'll remember what happened. There were police outside the Manning Center. There were people lined up at the private airport that Kiffin was taking off from. I say private. It was probably a public airport where he was taking off to get his private jet, screaming at him, flipping him off. We saw the video. It is one of the most toxic things I have ever seen in all of sports. And at this point in time, I can't help but lay the blame on Kiffin himself. That's what it all comes down to. And yeah, there are some people who probably made the wrong decisions as well. But the way he has carried himself through this process, I can't get on board with. Again, as someone who has benefited from Lane Kiffin's good coaching and good offensive coordinator work, I can't get on board with it. I am glad we dodged a bullet in Lane Kiffin with the coaching, with hiring a coach in Kalen DeBoer. Yeah, I'll be curious to see what the next 48 hours or so look like. He has officially touched down in Louisiana. He's at the facility. I believe he may have already been unveiled. I think that's happening Monday. So today, the day you're watching it. Apparently on top of that, a tweet from Caleb Odom came out saying that they found out when everybody else found out that he was leaving. He wasn't able to address the players. And I say wasn't able to. He either decided not to or was not allowed to. There's a bit of a mix in talking about that. There's a little bit of a mix-up in communication about that. Some sources say Lane Kiffin said that he was not allowed to address his team. Other places say he decided not to address his team. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and I don't think we'll ever fully know what actually happened and how this played out. But it was entertaining to watch. I'll say that. But at the same time, Lane Kiffin really hurt his own public image here. And again, he may go out and he may win a national championship with LSU in a few years. But on top of that, I didn't even mention this. The ultimatum that he gave to his staff saying, you're either on the plane with me or there's no spot for you at LSU. It's a tough look. It's not a good look. Pete Golding has decided to stay at Ole Miss and was now announced as their official permanent head coach. Again, another coordinator that Bama is familiar with. I did not particularly like him as a defensive coordinator, but I respect his loyalty and decision to stay. And I think that is what Ole Miss was looking for. From what I've seen, he's a big locker room guy. They like him there. So respect to him for doing that. Now the question becomes, well, what will the playoff committee do? And I've had some time to think on this. I've had time to think on this because there was very few moments in time where I believed that he was going to stay. I just didn't think that was a real option here. I always thought it was Kiffin was either going to go to Florida or LSU. And now that I've had time to think about it and now that all this has transpired, does the playoff committee allow Ole Miss into the playoffs? For me, the obvious answer is yes. I was stunned to see as so many people saying that they should not be allowed to go. And look, this team is 11-1. They lost to Georgia. And I just don't see any way you keep them out of the playoffs. Not only do I see a way you can't keep them out, they should be allowed in. This team and the players themselves deserved a spot, or they earned a spot, and they deserve to be allowed to play in this game, head coach or not. And some of the things I got told, or some examples that were brought up, were FSU a couple of years ago. Jordan Travis gets hurt, and they're out of the playoff because of it. Okay, well, I'll paint you a picture that shows this in a completely different scenario. After Jordan Travis got hurt, we saw FSU in that ACC title game. They looked awful against a very poor team, and that was a 4-team playoff. We have a 12-team playoff. Ole Miss likely going to come in around number 4 or 5 whenever the committee has its decision on Tuesday. You can't keep them out of this thing. It's as simple as that. There's just no possible way you cannot punish the players and the guys and the people who are willing to stay on this team for the actions of a former head coach in Lane Kiffin. And I just don't think it would be fair to do so, personally. Will he take players with him? Yes. Will he take staff with him? Yes. But should the guys who stay behind and worked and got them to that point, who have earned the right to be there, should they be allowed to play? Absolutely. So I think the committee does the right thing and lets them stay in. But I am shocked by the amount of people who disagree with that, or the people who believe that the committee will not allow them to stay. But I think that's insanity. I think the committee will allow them to be there. That's my final thought on that. Lane Kiffin really hurt his image here. I think he went about this very poorly. I don't think most people in this situation handled it well, the AD included, but this was just, it was not a good look. Kiffin took most of the damage here. And on top of that, he hurt his program that he built, essentially, in the process. All right. Man, that was a long-winded way of saying that Lane Kiffin hurt himself. Anyway, we're going to get on to the next couple of coaches that were hired. Number one, I was surprised to see Alex Golesh hired at Auburn. I was stunned by this. Now, I know talking about Alex Golesh, his name was linked with the Arkansas job a couple of weeks ago at this point. I thought that was pretty much a done deal. I didn't say anything about it. I didn't post anything about it because I was waiting for it to become official. But a lot of sources said this is a deal that is happening. It will be announced after the season is over. And now he flips and goes to Auburn. So what do I think about that situation? First things first, I think it's a good hire for Auburn. I really do. I think Durkin did a good job with what he had in this season. If he had been allowed to keep this job, I wouldn't have been mad at it from a neutral perspective. Look, I'm a Bama fan, obviously, but from a neutral perspective, when I speak about things like these, I think Durkin was a good enough person to take the job forward. In my mind as well, he was another coach that would not have cost you multi-millions of dollars to pay and keep, and then if he doesn't work out, you have to pay his buyout. I don't know what the contract is for Alex Golesh. It's going to be a lot less than it was for someone like Hugh Freeze, or like it would have been for another marquee head coach. I don't know who they would have gotten that's a marquee head coach that would feel like taking the Auburn job at this point, but Alex Golesh is a perfect character to step in and try and take this job over. Now, look, we've seen him do a good job. He was a Tennessee OC for a while, so he knows the ins and outs of the SEC. Was at UCF and then now is at USF, formerly at USF. Did a good job with the Bulls. I think it's a good hire. I think this system can work very well for him. If he can maintain and keep this roster, there's a lot of talk about Cam Coleman. There's a lot of talk about Deuce Knight. There's a lot of talk about a lot of these guys that are potentially leaving. If he can keep pieces of this roster together, I think he can build a good football team out of it. Now, are they going to be competing for the SEC championship year one? I don't think so. But I think he was a very good hire for Auburn, personally. I have my little board up here, and you can go see on Instagram. Go check out the Instagram at Talking Tide. We had like 8,700 people the night of the Iron Bowl, so I appreciate all you guys on there. If anybody's come over from there, thanks for jumping on. Please do like, please subscribe, do all that good stuff. I forgot to do that whole spiel in the beginning because there's way too much to talk about. But please do like, please subscribe, hit the like button, all that good stuff. So for my hiring grades, I had it. We had Lane Kiffin at number 1. He was an A for LSU. I sat here trying to think about who would be an A+. There's really nobody I would say that's an A+ right now as far as head coaching goes. If you got like a Nick Saban to come out of retirement, which won't happen, that would be an A+. If you pulled Kirby Smart out of Georgia, that would be an A+. But Kiffin's an A. I'm going to leave it at that. Alex Golesh for Auburn, I got him at a B+. Do I think he is an amazing coach? Not necessarily. Do I think he's a very good coach that Auburn found that was a very good fit? Yes, I do. I put him as a B+ for the fit, not necessarily for the coaching in itself, but I think he's a good fit for Auburn. Up next, we got Florida. We have John Summerall going to Florida. Now, the speculation for Florida was that Lane Kiffin was going to take the job. We all know that Billy Napier was fired early this season, and there was a big, strong pull to try and get Lane Kiffin to go to Florida. He has ties with Florida in the past. He worked at FAU. So at the end of the day, they found out that they were not going to be able to get him. A couple of weeks ago, the decision was essentially made to pull the plug on Lane Kiffin, that it was made very apparent that he was either going to stay at Ole Miss or move to LSU. So they went out and tried to find a good head coach, and I think they found one. They found one at Tulane. They found a John Summerall. Look, I think Summerall is a good fit for this program. I think that they're in a similar place to Auburn. Good history, loyal fan base, loyal to a fault at times where these fans feel more hurt than I think they do joy with their football program. And I think that Summerall is a guy that can go in there and try and revitalize this program to a point. Again, he's done it with smaller schools like Tulane. I believe he was at Troy for a while also. They got him at not a crazy amount of money. He's got a 6-year deal for $7.5 million a year with incentives on top of that. He's 42-11 in 4 seasons as a head coach. He had 2 seasons at Troy, 2 at Tulane, and he's reached his title conference game in all 4 seasons. This dude is successful at the level that he has played at. So can he do it at the next level? I believe so. He was touted to a lot of different jobs. Penn State was one of them. Auburn was one of them. Oklahoma State was one of them. Florida obviously was one of them. I think that he has the potential. If you get all those eyes from all those different schools, they see something in you that brings potential. And I think that Summerall has a lot of potential. Like I said, he's been effective everywhere he has been. And if you reach a title conference game in each of your seasons, in every season that you've been a head coach at football, you're doing something right. And right now, Florida needs something to go right because it's been some tough sledding there for a couple of years now. They never help themselves by playing the schedules that they do. I respect playing a tough schedule. I do. They do not help themselves at times with that. But I think that John Summerall is a good step in the right direction for Florida. I got them at a B up there on the board. Now we have to talk doom and gloom. We've hit a couple of good over good hires. Now we have to talk about Arkansas. Now, we talked about Alex Golesh, and we talked about him taking the Auburn job. We have to talk about who got hurt in this process. It's Arkansas. Now, there were a lot of speculations. It was essentially a done deal from what I had heard that Golesh was going to be hired at Arkansas. I don't know when that deal fell apart. I don't know when Ryan Silverfield came into the picture. But this is not good for Arkansas football. And I say this not trying to disrespect Ryan Silverfield. I mean, no disrespect at all. But this is a tough move for Arkansas. Now, for those of you who don't know, he came from Memphis. He was 50-25. Memphis actually went and beat Arkansas in the regular season. They have 4 wins over Power 4 opponents: West Virginia, Iowa State, Arkansas, and I actually don't know the other one currently. I don't have it down in my notes, but there's not a ton I know about Ryan Silverfield. I know what you guys know, the surface level stuff. I haven't done a ton of digging around him. From what I found, he is a okay football coach. All of the facts and logic and the clues, all this stuff says he's an average football coach. Was he Arkansas's first choice? Obviously not. So they missed on that point, and then they went and lost the potential head coach, who I think would have been a good hire, to a rival program, to an SEC program. So I think that this was a bit of a panic buy, if you will. I don't know if it's a good fit for them necessarily. Like I said, he went 15-25 in Memphis. He did beat Arkansas, which kind of shows you where they're at. But I don't see this being a fit for Arkansas for the long term. I see this setting Arkansas back quite a few steps with their football program. We've talked about Auburn making steps in the right direction, Florida making steps in the right direction. This is a step backwards for Arkansas. I don't see this being a positive move. And from what I've seen from Arkansas fans as well, this is clearly not the move that was wanted. And look, I mean no disrespect to the guy. I genuinely don't. But I think there has to be we have to step back and look and realize that, hey, they had this guy lined up in Alex Golish. He's a good fit for he is at the point in time where he can step up from a G5 team to a Power 4 team and try and take a struggling football team and advance them. I don't see this being an advancing move with Silverfield. I see this being a lateral move as far as coaching goes. Do I expect... Look, whenever we talk about successful football teams, we talk about teams that want to compete for national championships. You want to win your rivalry games. You want to compete for SEC championships. But this is not a step in that direction for Arkansas. I don't know what exactly they expected the response to be here. And look, I know they didn't get the guy they wanted. But whenever you look at this, whenever I look at a move that Auburn has made, that Florida has made, I look and I say, is this going to work out? Maybe. Are they trying to find the right fit to actually advance their football program? Yes. I cannot say the same here. What I think is going to happen with this is it's going to set Arkansas into a void of mediocrity. Look, I know they're bad right now as a football team. It could get a lot worse. Like, genuinely, it could get a lot worse. Not because of Silverfield. I'm not trying to slander his name. Maybe he does a great job. What I'm talking about is for Arkansas, their basis right now, the higher ups in this program are not reaching for what they should be reaching for, which is conference championships, improving, making bowl games, stuff like that. Right now, they're reaching for saying, yeah, we'll keep it afloat and we'll just see what happens. That is not a good thing. In case you didn't know, that is not a good step in the right direction for Arkansas football. I got someone I talked to quite a bit who runs a big SEC page. He's an Arkansas fan. And we talked about the Golish hire, like, hey, this is a positive move. Get him at OKDC and you will have a competent football team next year. I have not heard from him today. I need to go check and do a welfare check on him because this is not what Arkansas football wanted or needed. So, again, this is no slander on Silverfield at all, but it's more of a worrying indicator of where the higher-ups at Arkansas football currently are. And it's not like you're hurting for money. I mean, you have Walmart and Tyson Foods as some of your biggest sponsors on your field. So I don't think the money's a factor here. But look, maybe Silverfield comes in and does some good things, does the right things, and impresses everybody. But from what I've seen, it's concerning for Arkansas football. I'll just leave it at that. Also, pretty much as I sat down to record this, Mark Stoops has been fired from Kentucky. I haven't done any digging on that. As far as who's next up in the coaching lineup, I genuinely sat down, picked up my phone for a couple of seconds, scrolled through Instagram, trying to get my thoughts together, saw Mark Stoops was fired. So that's news as well. Breaking news as we're running the show. Again, there's not much to be put on that. Kentucky has not been in a good spot, and there's no hire been made. So I just don't know what they're going to do at this point. I haven't seen any names circling the job. I didn't think it was going to happen personally, so I just didn't put any investment into looking for a potential replacement. So I don't know about that. Also, rather just say that for the Arkansas job, I got it at a D minus as far as head coaching goes. And that's maybe just being a little bit kind to Silverfield, because I don't know. Again, I don't know much about the guy, but it shows more of what the higher ups at Arkansas are thinking about the football program and being okay with somewhat casting it into mediocrity. Okay, now that all that's out of the way, let's talk Auburn, Alabama. So the Iron Bowl happened. Alabama wins 27-20. If you just want to be the person who just comes up here and looks at a box score, we can rattle off some numbers real quick. Let's go find them real fast. So Alabama beats Auburn 27-20. A couple of numbers for you here. We have got... So, starting with quarterback, we got Ty Simpson, 19 of 35, 122 yards. 3 touchdowns is the key number there. I know that Ty didn't have a marquee day, but 3 touchdowns and no turnovers. As a Bama fan, I'll take that any day of the week. The run game found some success for Alabama. Jam Miller, 15 carries, 83 yards, averaging 5.5 a carry. Daniel Hill, 11 carries, 39 yards, averaging about 3.5 per carry. Receiving game for Bama, I know the numbers weren't very high in the passing game anyway. Isaiah Horton led the Tide in receptions with 5, 35 yards, 3 touchdowns for Isaiah Horton. Ladzier Brooks, 3 catches, 29 yards. Jeremy Bernard, 3 catches, 24 yards. A couple of numbers for Auburn. Ashton Daniels overall had an okay day, I think, for the Auburn Tigers. 18 of 39, 295 through the air, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He also led Auburn in rushing, 23 carries, 108 yards. Jeremiah Cobb, 10 carries, 33 yards and a touchdown. Receiving for Auburn, Malcolm Simmons, 3 catches, 143 yards and a touchdown. He had a good day for the Tigers. Cam Coleman, 5 catches, 43 yards. And then Eric Singleton Jr., 3 catches, 26 yards. So when you look at this game on paper, if you would have read me out these yardage totals and shown me the box score, I would have been concerned for Alabama with good reason. Numbers to numbers, Auburn outgained Bama 411-280. They have more first downs. They have better third down conversion percentage. They actually ended up losing the time of possession. Bama won that one 34-29. But as we learned last week, total yards, first downs, penalties, all that stuff doesn't matter if you don't have ball security. And at the end of the day, ball security is what lost Auburn this football game. Bama's defense did enough. Alabama's offense capitalized when mistakes were made. And Bama goes out here and wins this football game. Was it ever going to be pretty? Not likely. It looked like it could have been a bit of a blowout early on. Bama led 17-0 in that first half. And then offense switched off to a point. I think we got very out of rhythm in a way. We made some play calls that I just don't think were the right decision. And there's a lot to be talked about in that, but we won't talk about that today. We'll go study some film. We'll look at all that good stuff on Thursday or Friday before the SEC championship game. Also with this win, Bama will play Georgia again for the SEC championship game in Atlanta this next weekend. So that's exciting times for the Crimson Tide. So let's talk about this game. So first things first, I want to talk about the Alabama offense. We'll just start with that. We'll make it nice and easy. All I asked for in this game was you don't lose time of possession dramatically and you don't turn the ball over. That's 2 for 2. Tide did not throw an interception. We did not put the ball on the ground. We won time of possession. Did a good job of ball security. Ty made some good decisions. He made some bad ones, but he made mostly good decisions, took care of the ball. We didn't get a strip sack fumble, and defense got turnovers. On top of that, the offense did a good enough job controlling the game in time of possession, made a long final drive to win the game. I don't actually know how long that final drive was, but they dominated time of possession. They outgained. They had 10 more minutes of possession over Auburn. So, look, I think that whenever you're going to play this game, if you've ever watched the Iron Bowl, if you're a neutral or if you're a fan of either team, this game is very rarely a pretty win for Alabama in Jordan-Hare. If you would have told me that we win by 7 points, I would have snapped your hand off it right then and there. Missing your key tight end and Josh Cuevas, injuries piling up, suspensions as well, some very specific positions getting beat up. Cam went out with the targeting call. Deshaun Jones has a broken hand, and then we also had Red Morgan go down in a portion of that game, and they really attacked that spot on the field after he went out. He came back, thankfully, for the Crimson Tide. But look, this game was a game that came down to moments. And I've said it all year. This defense plays for moments. This defense for Bama was elite. I know we gave up a good chunk of yards in this game. However, whenever it came down to it, whenever it came down to getting the crucial stop, they did it. Again, I know we're talking about the offense, but whenever you have an offense that, I said it before this game, if this offense can go out here and score 25 points, we win this football game. We scored 27, we won the football game. That's what matters at the end of the day with this game. And again, did we light it up on offense? No. I think that the first half we played a good enough offense. In the first quarter, we lit it up. In the second quarter, we went about 50-50. And then in the third and fourth quarter, in the fourth quarter, it felt like that South Carolina game. We were able to put together a drive and end up winning this game. First things first, I got to say this. What a gutsy call by Kalen DeBoer. You know the noise. You know what was being talked about before this game even started. It's been talked about all year long. Kalen DeBoer, with his job on the line, look, first and first, I don't think DeBoer was ever going to be, I don't think he should have ever been fired based on the result of this game. He knows the noise. He knows what would have happened if Alabama did not score on that 4th down and 2. He goes out there, goes for it on 4th down and 2. Nobody would have criticized him for kicking a field goal. Not a single person on the planet would have criticized him for kicking that field goal. That is the generic, everyday coach thing to do. He goes out there, calls a 4th down and 2, decides to go for it, and Bama ends up winning the winning touchdown. How gutsy is that from a head coach? When you know that your job is hanging on that one play, that is an unbelievable amount of confidence in this team. And they proved him right. They went out and they did it. Isaiah Horton got his 3rd touchdown of the night. Shout out Kalen DeBoer. Look, I know people did not like him after the FSU game. Look, I was critical at times too. I'm not going to say I never was. But the amount of rubber banding in this fan base is unbelievable. And when I say that, look, my mind was made up before this the ball was even snapped in this game. Kalen DeBoer should be our head coach next season. If Alabama would not have scored on that play and Auburn goes down and kicks a field goal to win the football game, people would have flipped from saying, oh, he needs to be our head coach to he doesn't need to be our head coach. The fact that you would allow a huge decision in this football program's history to be decided by one play is insane. I'm going to put that out there right now. My decision was already made up after the Oklahoma game. I know we lost, but my decision was made up, honestly, after the Tennessee game. Kalen DeBoer needs to be our next head coach. Kalen DeBoer needs to be our head coach next season. And look, I know people would have called for his job after that play if we did not score on it. Thank the Lord we did, because the fallout would have been astronomical, equivalent to what Arkansas is seeing today. And I just got to say that we as a fan base need to and I'm not just specifically talking to the fans. There's a ton of other people out there that run pages and do essentially what I do. We're fans. We talk about the game but for me, I like to come at this at an angle of I'm not going to make decisions based on moments. I'm going to make decisions based on what I see as the year and as the game and as the moments progress. The turnaround from that FSU game to now with this football team, I know the offense isn't clicking. I know we've had our struggles, but the mentality shift, the motivation, the willing to put in the work, it's there. It is 100% there. And for me, that was the only thing I was ever concerned about Kalen DeBoer. I know he can do the X's and O's. I know he can hire guys who can do the X's and O's. I know he can recruit. I know we have a good GM who can run this football program. We have all of that. The motivation and the understanding of how SEC football is played is what I was concerned about. Both of those things were proven to me that he knows how to do them on that 4th down and 2. He knows that this means the world to people like me and people like you, if you're a Bama fan watching this. Saying that, you know what? We're going to go out there and we're just going to prove that we're a better football team than you one-on-one. No trick plays, no gadget, nothing like that. No Ryan Grubb, brainiac play calling. Said, you know what? We're going to go out there and Isaiah Horton's going to beat your guy. It wasn't his first read either. He was looking at the tight ends. Checks it back, sees Zay running across the middle wide open, fires it, hits him, touchdown, Alabama win the game. That right there is the confidence that I want to see in my head coach. No second decision. No saying, maybe we shouldn't go for it. No trying to draw them off sides, call a timeout, send a field goal kicker out there, which is what I thought we were going to do. None of that. He knows the identity of this team. He knows they want to go out there. They want to win, and they did it. And that was the only concern I ever had with him. He's proved me and a ton of people not wrong, but he's settled my concerns. So shout out Kalen DeBoer. I could not be happier for the man. I think he has done a great job with this football program. Going from year 1 to year 2, I know that we were once again in a situation where it was do or die. And last season we didn't get it done. This season we did. This season we're in an SEC championship game. We've beat Georgia twice now. We can go do it a third time. Kalen DeBoer has beaten Georgia twice now. He can go do it a third time and win Alabama an SEC championship. That's a success. In year 2, that is a full-on success. So shout out Kalen DeBoer. I could not be happier for the man, genuinely. There are times where you kind of sit in the season and you look and you say, oh, he's a placeholder. Like it feels like, oh, this is still, it feels like, where's Nick Saban? Is he gone for the game? Is he gone for the week? Is he gone for, a couple months? No, Nick Saban is gone. And now we have Kalen DeBoer. And Kalen DeBoer is the head coach at Alabama. And he proved that he can and is willing to do the things to make this football program successful, even though it might draw him criticism. If that play doesn't go well and we lose this football game, people will be calling for his job because of that play specifically. Now people are going to sit back and say, oh, well, this was always the right decision. I'm glad he went for it. I had faith in this guy all along. No, you didn't. You would have said one way or the other that, oh, he should have been fired if this play doesn't go well. Oh, yeah, he's a great hire if this play goes successfully. That's rubber banding. That's not what we need. And that's not whatever you're ever going to get from me personally. It's the Josh Pate thing. If you ever watch Josh Pate, you got to move at the speed of honey, not water. If I put a drop of water on a paper plate and I tip it on its side, it's going to run down as quickly as it can. That's how a lot of people react to stuff like this. That's how some larger Alabama pages react to some stuff like this. You got to move at the speed of honey. You got to tip this thing over, and eventually it's going to move all the way down this plate and then drop off. But it ain't going to be as fast as the water does. I got to see consistently, time and time again, reasons to doubt somebody. And Kalen DeBoer, time and time again, has given me reasons to trust him. So I understand that people will have their opinions on this. I understand that people will say that, he's the right decision now, who were saying he was the wrong decision after the Oklahoma game, after the FSU game, all this kind of stuff. And again, I have my doubts. I'm not going to sit here and say that after that FSU game, I was ecstatic with how he reacted. I wasn't. But week in and week out, he's done the right things. He's said the right things. He's got the results. And now we're sitting looking at a potential SEC championship in year 2. Fantastic recruiting class. Fans that show up on the weekends. Football team that, despite what it has looked like in the past couple of weeks, has results. So I'm on board with Kalen DeBoer 100% until proven otherwise. So I don't know if that's a big shock or anything for anybody, but I was on board with him 100% before this game. I'm still on board 100% after this game. And no one play against Georgia will change that. So we'll just go with that for now. That's a very long-winded way of saying that I trust Kalen DeBoer. And I think on top of that, you got to give this guy some grace. It's a difficult job replacing Nick Saban. And I think that the fact that some people were willing to say, yeah, we need to fire him after this game if we lose, that's pure insanity. That's how you run a football program into the ground, by firing and hiring, firing and hiring. It doesn't work like that. But luckily we won this game and that doesn't matter. So that's the good part about it. Let's talk about defense. Once again, this defense played lights out. I know they put up a lot of yards on the ground and through the air, but at the end of the day, defense got the stops when they mattered. There was a couple of times where we could have had 3 or 4 fumbles on the same drive picked up. Luckily enough, at the end of the day, we got a tip pick that ended up falling into Bray Hubbard's hands. So that was a big positive. And then I said that Isaiah Horton called the game. Bray Hubbard and Deontay Lawson called this game. I gotta do another rant, another shout out. I know I ranted for Kalen DeBoer. Shout out Bray Hubbard, man. Whenever you talk about someone who was criticized during that FSU game, Kalen DeBoer is number 1. Bray Hubbard was number 2. We all saw the video of him jogging after the player when they ran for a touchdown. That dude got dogged for that entire week on the internet, even after ULM and Wisconsin. A lot of flack being thrown his way. And look, I wasn't unguilty of it. I agree that we need to show effort in moments, technical ability or not. We need to show effort in moments. But that dude put his head down, grinded, worked all season, turned it around, got interceptions in crucial moments, made big hits, made plays happen. And at the end of the day, he was a part of the play that got us to an SEC championship. That is the type of player I want at Alabama. If you're the type of player who sits there and can't handle some criticism, because look, if you play at the University of Alabama, we are the most watched football team in the country, college football team in the country. You are going to face criticism from every corner of the internet. I don't care what happens. And if you can't handle that and you say, oh, well, it's unfair or something of that nature, that's fine. But at the end of the day, I don't need that in the football program. What I want is guys like Bray Hubbard, guys who get their head down, they put in the work, they don't go talk all this kind of talk in the media. You can look and you can find Bray Hubbard. Dude is quiet, dude is humble, dude does not say a bad word about anybody, but he goes and he shows and he puts the effort on the field. And at the end of the day, that wins you football games. And it earns you respect in the locker room and outside of it. If we had 22 guys, and at this point, I'm saying we probably do have 22 guys like Bray Hubbard, because each and every one of them put their head down, grinded, put in the work, and after we went 0-1 at FSU, we were in the SEC championship game playing against Georgia. Nobody would have believed you if you told you that 14 weeks ago. And that's because of guys like Bray, because of guys like Deontay, who didn't start the year well, guys like Ty. All of these guys, I am just so extremely proud and happy for this team, because after week 1, and again, reasonable criticism, right? We did not play good. The effort was not there. But at the end of the day, people put their head down, they put in the work, and look at where you're standing now. In the middle of the season, we were talking about, this is the end of the regular season. Our regular season is over. We're postseason now. We said, you know what, let's put our head down. Let's get through one game. Let's get through two games. We got this tough run of SEC games. We got Vandy, Missouri, Tennessee, South Carolina. Let's put our head down, see where we get after that. If we end up with one loss, cool. Oklahoma, all these other games, LSU, all these tough games, man. We put our head down, we grind and we grind and we work and we get better week over week. And then now you pick your head up and you say, well, the regular season's over. How do we do? Pretty dang good. Wouldn't have believed me if I told you that after week one. But everybody put their head down. They grinded. They put in the work. And you know what? They deserve full credit. Every single one of them. Guys like Wilkin Formby, got lambasted on the internet. And again, nothing personal to the guy. He wasn't good enough at times. And we still have problems on offensive line. We have problems all over the field. But the fact that these guys put their head down, got better week over week, and now we're going to Mercedes-Benz Stadium to play for an SEC championship. We should be a lock. We'll talk about this. We should be a lock for the playoffs. Nobody would have believed you that if they told you that after week one. If you would have looked at the schedule and you would have blindly said, oh yeah, this is FSU and then this is Alabama. And what did FSU end up, like 4-6, something like that? People would have said, oh yeah, that's Bama. They ended up 4-6. FSU's probably 10-2. They overworked them. They crushed them. Nope. Bama's 10-2. FSU is wherever they are. That's the type of team. That's the type of player. And again, guys like Bray Hubbard, guys like Deontay Lawson, Wilkin Formby, guys who have taken the criticism and they've turned it on its head and made it motivation. Those are the type of guys I respect, and those are the type of guys I want on this football team. And it's because of guys like that we're looking at an SEC championship game. So full credit to them, man. I cannot be more proud and more happy for this team. Couple of moments that happened in this game. Look, there's a lot of talk about referees. I don't care about any of that. Auburn played a bad game. It has to be said. Drops, penalties, missed opportunities, bad coverage, bad tackling. They played a bad football game. Did Alabama play a great football game? No, and we'll talk about some of the negatives about this game. I hated the play calling. Right off the rip, I hated the play calling. I thought that the play calling up to a point in the first half was good. It switched after we decided to run that little double pass but a flea flicker type of play with Germ. Didn't work, wasted a drive, and it let Auburn back into this football game. If I go back and watch the tape, that is the moment it flipped. And Auburn got belief, and they decided to go out there and they made it a football game. Because Auburn, fair enough, they competed. They're not a very good technical football team, but they competed. They always were going to. So I hated the play calling in this game. I know we got away with the win. Ryan Grubb called up a very good final drive, but it feels very reminiscent of the South Carolina game. It feels reminiscent of the Oklahoma game where we saw it go wrong. If you get a final drive and you end up missing, you end up dropping a ball, you end up getting a strip sack, something like that, the game is over. So I did not like the play calling, and the lack of good play calling made small mistakes bigger. That wheel route to Jam that he dropped, that one hurt a lot. That was lack of execution. There was equal fault on both sides to why we did not play a great football game. I think lack of execution was a big part of it. That there were plays that we did not execute very well, assignments that we did not win. And again, we'll go more into detail about that whenever we do a film study on Wednesday or Thursday. But I think that part of it was play calling. I think part of it was also execution. So that is something we have to clean up before next week. Look, we go play Georgia in a week. No time to rest. No rest for the weary. I don't think we're going to have Josh Cuevas. I don't think we're going to have Jam Miller for this game. So we got to go out there and we got to figure out how to get it done. The good side, we found a run game. Now, I know I just mentioned that Jam Miller is hurt. He ran for 83 yards this past weekend, and I'm not 100% sure, but outside of last week when we played Eastern Illinois, I don't think we had a run total over 150 yards. If you would have told me we had 150 rushing yards in this game, I would have snapped your hand off for it. We ran for 158. We averaged 4.2 on the ground. Those are not the type of stats I expected to see in this game. Auburn has a fairly stout run defense. So we have found something in the run game. And again, I know that we're going to be probably missing Jam in the SEC championship game this weekend, but we found something there. That's a positive. We found something last week, but it was Eastern Illinois. And said, okay, you kind of write it off. But past 2 weeks, we have found a bit of a run game. Even against Oklahoma, we popped a couple of better runs. So we are working in the run game. The passing game, still very stagnant. And again, I think half of that is execution. I think half of that is play calling / preparation. And also just not necessarily reading the situation at the time. I think there was a lot of times where, and we'll get into more detail on this when we do a film session, but there was a lot of times where it was clear and obvious that Auburn was going to blitz. They played cover 0 on a ton of third downs, and we didn't make it easy on Ty. Well, we didn't find anything short. We didn't find anything inside of 5 yards with anybody except for a tight end. Guys were running 10, 15-yard routes down the field, and when you're a quarterback and you have 2 seconds to throw the ball, you don't have that kind of time to get that guy down the field. So I think that was a bit of a problem in this game. I think not reading situations very well was something that was not good. And I think that's been something that's been poor for a couple of weeks now. I think not reading situations. South Carolina is a good example of this. I think that we didn't read situations very well, both as an OC and potentially as a quarterback too at times. So I think that's something that we'll have to clean up. Georgia's a very good defensive unit. They will be bringing pressure. So again, that's something we have to clean up. Now, we have talked about the negatives. The positive, we won this football game. We found a way to grind out and win this football game. And when we talk about all these kind of negatives, the positive to come out of it when you win a football game is you had all these negatives and you still found a way to win, which is what this team has done pretty much all season outside of Oklahoma. I think that there is something to be said for grinding out a tough win in a tough environment. You know, Auburn is playing for essentially nothing. They have nothing to lose. They don't have a head coach. They, would get a bowl game, but they're playing to ruin your season, and you did not allow them to do that. So there is something to be said for that mentally. Now, execution-wise, there is a lot of improvement to be had. I think that, again, I think that there's offensive line execution. I think that there's a couple of missed passing opportunities. I don't think Ty really missed a ton of throws in this game. I think that stuff was designed to not necessarily help him in this game. And again, not like maliciously, obviously. I don't think that anybody's scheming to get somebody to play poorly. But I just think that we did not make it easy on Ty. I'll put it like that with our play calling. So I think that is some things that need to be cleaned up. But again, we found a way to win this game, which is the positive, which is what matters. I mean, if you find ways to win week over week, eventually, look, the way I look at it is if you find a way to win the SEC championship and you play poorly, I don't care. You won the SEC championship. Yes, you can go and improve and work on things and do things better the next week whenever you have your bowl game. But then, again, you do better. You still maybe don't play a great game. You try to improve. You survive and advance. And eventually, if you keep on doing that and finding ways to win, you look up and you're holding a national championship trophy, and all the bad things that happen don't matter. All things that you didn't do very well don't matter. So, and that's the way this team has felt, man. The past 6 weeks, that's the way this team has felt. Survive and advance. Do I love that? Not necessarily. Are there ways that we can avoid doing that in the future? Yeah, absolutely. And I think there are fixes that can be a little more simple. That there are some fixes that are Band-Aids and there are some fixes that are more long-term. You're not going to get your offensive pass blocking technique massively improved in this game or in this stage of the season. You're not going to massively improve your run game at this stage in the season. But there are Band-Aids. There are fixes that can get you week over week. You find weaknesses in the other team and you exploit them. And we've been able to do that. So that is the huge positive. This team finds ways to win. There's a couple of channels I love that say Auburn finds ways to lose. We find ways to win. And that's what we did this weekend. So fair play to this team. I think I've rambled plenty in this. If you go from coaches to player improvement to mental motivation, all this kind of stuff. Look, at the end of the day, Alabama beat Auburn in the Iron Bowl. And the last thing I want to talk about is this playoff nonsense that I've heard going around, saying that if Alabama loses the SEC championship game, they might not make the playoffs. If Alabama wins the SEC championship game, they should be in the playoffs. Did I say that right? If Alabama loses the SEC championship game, they should be in the playoffs. The notion that if you lose a conference championship game when everybody else is sitting at home and you miss the playoffs because of that is absurd. The SEC championship is a reward. It is a reward for the efforts you put in this season, and now you get to go play on a huge stage for a trophy. The SEC championship is my favorite game of the year. I enjoy it more than the Sugar Bowl, the Rose Bowl, the Cotton Bowl. I've been to the Rose Bowl twice. It didn't go well for us twice. But the SEC championship to me it's my favorite game of the year. I enjoy it more. I think that the pageantry and the tradition around it it's what you play for all season. And it is a reward to go out there and to be able to play for such a prestigious trophy. If the committee then decide, if Alabama loses this game by 10 points, and the committee decide that because of that, a 2-loss team who was sitting at home, who did not go play, who will be the number 3 team in the country after Texas A&M has lost, Georgia will be the number 3 team in the country. If you go out there and you lose to them by 10 or 14 even, I don't care what the number is, you should still be allowed to go play in the playoffs. If I'm Alabama, look, I'll say this. I look at this as it's a game to say you get a home or away game. If Bama wins, I think we get a home playoff game. I think we'll jump up enough spots to say, hey, we get a home playoff game. If we lose and we go down to 11 or 12, we're going to go play an away game. That is the extent of we'll call it consequences of losing this game. Going out of the playoffs is not in the question. If you go out and you lose the SEC championship game and if at the end of the regular season you are in the playoffs and then you go play the SEC championship game and then decide you are out of the playoffs, we have to do away with the conference championships. It's as simple as that. And I hate to say that. The SEC championship is my favorite game of the year every year, but you have to do away with it. It's as simple as that. If it has turned from a reward to where players and coaches, you get rewarded to go play this prestigious game at the end of the season because of how good your season has been, and then it can turn into a punishment. If that is the case, you have to get rid of conference championships because that is absurd. Now, do I think that the committee will do that? No, I think the committee will be reasonable and say, you know what? If Bama wins or if Bama loses this game and they lost to a Georgia team that is a very good football team who we beat early in the regular season, they're still in. We may drop them to 11 or 12, but I don't think that they will drop us out of the playoffs if we end up losing the SEC championship game. Obviously, I want to win this game, but I think that the notion surrounding this game, saying that Bama could be out if they should lose it, is insane. So that's where I stand with that. And again, I don't believe the committee will do that. I believe that the committee will be reasonable human beings and say that, yes, Bama is in, win or lose. So I just want to dispel that notion now and say that I think that conference championships are a reward, not a potential punishment. It's not an extra playoff game. So yeah, that's my final rambling for the day. I appreciate you guys tuning in. This was a much longer show than I really intended it to be, but a lot of stuff's going on. We are in the postseason now. Alabama finishes their season 10-2, beating Auburn. We accomplished 90% of our objectives. Really, the only one we missed was beating Oklahoma and the FSU game at the beginning of the season. But beating Oklahoma was one of the objectives that I would have liked to have seen in this regular season. But look, year 2 under Kalen DeBoer, we're in an SEC championship game. To me, we should be essentially a lock for the playoffs. It's been a successful year overall. And if you would have told me that after we started 0-1, I wouldn't have believed you, but I would have taken it. So congratulations to this team. Congratulations to Coach DeBoer. They've put in a ton of work this year, and it's shown, and now they get a reward, and we get to go play Georgia for the SEC championship game this week. So we will do a preview for that game. We will break down some Auburn film. We'll go and break down some Georgia film also sometime this week. I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you made it this far, please do hit that like, hit that subscribe button, hit the little thumbs up. If you like something I said, or if you don't like something I said, leave a comment. I respond to every comment that I get. So please do feel free to leave a comment if you agree or you disagree with something. I appreciate all you guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week, and Roll Tide.